So I'm going to invite Judge Dario Camara. Judge Dario Camara, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Thank you for that introduction. I will not say anything that you've said already. However, I am very happy that we have our board members on board. It is really encouraging, not only to the judges, but also the debaters. Very good to know that at least we have strong backup from all the people that matter to us in NDC. On board, today's judges will be Pesh Pony. Pesh, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay. Let me have Team Affirmative read out the resolution that they got. Team Affirmative.
This House believes that the best long-term approach to prevention and mitigation of epidemics is behavioral change rather than medical intervention.
Okay, thank you very much. Team Negative, do you share the same resolution?
Yes. Yeah.
You share the same resolution?
Yeah.
Okay. The idea is to try and see that all of us are on board and all of us have the same information so that we do not have any controversies. So since I have established that we have the same information and all the debaters are on, Judge Cohens has also logged in. Judge Cohens, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, that's very good. You can hear me. We are going to start this round now that you've logged in. And the round is being recorded as well, just in case you may need a copy of it. The time is going to be 6:55. All first speakers will have 6 minutes. And please keep an eye on the chat because I'll only tell you as you're remaining with a minute. I will try to tell you that a minute to go so that you try to follow it closely. So I'll give 6 minutes for all first speakers, and then second and third speakers on either sides will take five minutes. So since all judges are on, I'll call upon the first affirmative to start the debate.
This House believes that the best long-term approach to prevention and mitigation of epidemics is behavioral change rather than medical intervention. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the resolution that we're faced with today. First of all, my name is Kagoro Enoch, together with Bambala Janad and Kamasko Desire on Team Affirmatives. As the first affirmative, I'll introduce the resolution. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as the first affirmative, I'm supposed to define the key terms in the resolution. Now, best is something that has a step ahead of others, something that is a step ahead of others. Now, long-term approach, it is a response or a way of handling things that takes a lot of time, that takes a long period of time to produce required results. Now, ladies and gentlemen, prevention is stopping something from happening, and mitigation is the action of reducing the severity or seriousness or painfulness of something. Ladies and gentlemen, what is an epidemic? It is a rapid spread of disease to a large number of people in a given population within a short period of time. For example, epidemics like Marburg, Ebola, the previous COVID-19 that has turned into a pandemic, very many epidemics, ladies and gentlemen. Now, behavioral change, this is a change in the way of life or way of doing things, ladies and gentlemen. And as Team Affirmatives, we believe that human behavior changes towards what they like most or things they fear most, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what is medical intervention? Medical intervention is the application of the medical sector or the use of technology to produce vaccines, tablets, injections, among others, ladies and gentlemen. Now, as Team Affirmatives, we're coming with a stand as saying that for us to prevent or for mitigation to happen, we opt for behavioral change, ladies and gentlemen. Without behavioral change, then there's nothing else that can happen because everything begins as the disease of the mind. Everything starts with the mind, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what is the need for this resolution? This resolution mainly calls us upon to determine whether it is behavioral change or medical intervention that is best, not that is overall, but that is best in prevention and mitigation of epidemics, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Team Affirmative is saying that we are supposed, we is opting for behavioral change. Why are we opting for behavioral change? We're looking at the comparative action, ladies and gentlemen. We're comparing behavioral change and mitigation change. Something we should realize is that we're not saying that medication is not important, but which is best. That is the need for this resolution, particularly, ladies and gentlemen. Now, looking at behavioral change, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, it is sustainable, ladies and gentlemen. Why? You teach somebody something, you tell him, when you do this, let's say when you don't go into border contact, you won't get Ebola. That means that person will keep it in the mind, and then he'll keep on passing it even to the offsprings, ladies and gentlemen, and that will mean to be sustainable. And as a result, it will be cheap, ladies and gentlemen. That is my second view, ladies and gentlemen, because people later adopt, and after people have adopted, you don't need to do any more expenses of sensitizing, any more expenses of the rest, ladies and gentlemen. Now, that it is manageable, ladies and gentlemen, because it is the disease of the mind, ladies and gentlemen, that you're trying to eradicate. Now, after somebody has known it by the mind, that means it will be manageable because he knows it in mind that he's not supposed to do such and such, ladies and gentlemen. That is the behavioral change, ladies and gentlemen, that you're talking about. Now, it also helps in reducing the chances of the epidemic to progress into another level of being a pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. Like I've told you, I'll give an example of Ebola, ladies and gentlemen. Ebola is an epidemic that doesn't have a cure, ladies and gentlemen. But then it disappears, ladies and gentlemen. It ends. Why? Because of behavioral change. When people know that Ebola is in place, they don't go into things like body contact. They don't go into unnecessary congestions and the rest. And as a result of behavioral change, Ebola is always eradicated. Looking at a Marburg, the same case, ladies and gentlemen. Cholera, the same case, ladies and gentlemen. Now, behavioral change can be reformative in case of a mistake, or it can be corrective. Can be corrective. Can be corrective. And now, ladies and gentlemen, comparing it to medical interventions, ladies and gentlemen, some countries are not in position to raise the funds, make research, and sustain the medication, ladies and gentlemen. Now, some countries, ladies and gentlemen, in fact, most countries, ladies and gentlemen, are not technologically steady, ladies and gentlemen. They are not they are not technologically upright. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? That behavioral change is convenient for everyone, ladies and gentlemen. And if some countries cannot adopt to medication because of the problems I've showed you, that means behavioral change will be convenient for everyone. Now, ladies and gentlemen, going through my status quo, currently global, we have so many epidemics where others have turned to be pandemics. An example is the most recent COVID-19 that turned into a pandemic just because of belief in medical interventions, ladies and gentlemen, without considering behavioral change, ladies and gentlemen. And until people changed behavior, when the disease was at a high rate of increasing, we think that the rate of increment, ladies and gentlemen, is at least low because of behavioral change, because of the lockdown, ladies and gentlemen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, another case is with HIV/AIDS. Because why is HIV/AIDS increasing day by day? Because people know that there is something that can sustain them, the ARVs. So they go by that, ladies and gentlemen, and for that it increases. Now, I gave you an example of HIV/AIDS, ladies and gentlemen. 37.9 million. This is according to a report by WHO, World Health Organization, of July 2018. 37.9 million people globally live with AIDS, ladies and gentlemen. Why?
Your time
Because
is
of
up.
the viruses that are there. Ladies and gentlemen, my second speaker will continue from there. Allow me to rest my case.
Thank you very much, Enoch. Okello Innocent, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
This house believes that the best long-term approach to prevention and mitigation of epidemics is behavioral change rather than medical intervention. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, in tonight's motion, Team Affirmative came to debate desires, but Team Negative is going to debate hardships on ground that come with establishment of this behavior change. Honorable judges, in due course, I'll have to first react with their definition of behavior change specifically. In their definition of behavior change, they say it means changing life's behaviors. But in the definition of team negators, we believe that behavior change means directing somebody's limited mental focus on one goal and ignoring the other. Honorable judges, Team Affirmative came with arguments like there is a problem that it is sustainable. They brought that it is cheap. They brought that it's manageable, that it reduces chances of epidemics from going into a pandemic, and then that it is reformative in case of errors. Honorable judges, allow me to start from the very first type. They talk about the sustainability aspect of it, honorable judges. I'll have to respond to the very fact that they believe that human beings adapt to certain environments. Yes, they adapt to certain environments. But now I'll have to just give a very simple example of the recent COVID-19 outbreak into a pandemic, honorable judges. In a country like Uganda, where last time even the president was giving a speech about increasing the lockdown, you can see the response of people to that. Now, the sustainability part is that it is not sustainable in the sense that people can be able to adapt for a very limited short amount of time, and after that, they are not able to even further respond to that. That is why even it is hard to even to enforce the curfew and then the quarantine. That makes it not sustainable. Now, how long will people keep in quarantines is a question that I expect Team Affirmative to answer in their subsequent speech. Now, they talked about the issue of cheapness. in relation to expense, honorable judges. Now, if you realize the expenses in this, that it is easy, maybe, it may be easier to adapt, maybe to extend behavior. But this is cheap only in the short run. But in the long run, it's more expensive because you'll have to bring in methods for people to adapt to these kind of systems. So this makes it really, really very expensive. Now they talked about the issue of manageable, that it is a disease of the mind. Honorable judges, it is common sense that this may be a disease of the mind, but this disease needs diagnosis, and this diagnosis is actually done by a scientific means or by medical intervention, without which this behavior change that they are trying to sing about is not possible. Honorable judges, also so that it reduces the chance of epidemic from going into a pandemic. Honorable judges, the reason why it goes from, there's no proper cure, there's no proper treatment for it. So if a proper treatment is done through a medical intervention, it is going to be easier to treat this, and then it will not go into a pandemic. Honorable judges, they said it is reformative. To be informative means that there are errors that exist in this. So why would they reform something if it is actually the best, if it is the long term? Now, the reformative aspect of it just shows that there are a lot of errors that exist in it, viable, and that it doesn't have benefits. Honorable judges, they also talked about comparatively that medical intervention is surfaced by problems of lack of funds by other countries, limited technology in other countries. Honorable judges, the World Health Organization, which very many countries in the whole world claim to lack of funds and lack of limited to the work that has been prepared by Team Negative. Team Negative believes in the very fact that as much as they are saying that this thing is working, it is just working in principle, but it cannot work in practice. Like how many people have been told to wash hands for 20 seconds and actually do it? You realize that team affirmative is just assuming that all the conditions in different communities exist actually the same. But this is not true because communities have different existence conditions, and this makes it very hard for their approach to be the long-term approach. This therefore makes medical intervention to be the best approach for the epidemic to be prevented. Honorable judges, I beg to rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Innocent.
Dear judges, in today's debate, we are asking ourselves, why behavior change? But before I can go to the behavior change, I would like to begin by refuting what our dear first negator said. Now, in today's debate, they are asking us that it's the disease of the mind. So now we are wondering, after sensitization, after the people getting to know that they are actually fearing for a danger that is coming to them, why wouldn't people actually change? We are looking at people. It has been told to several people that before eating, you have to wash your hands, dear judges. And this has been realized. Everyone washes their hands before they can actually eat. And what does this mean? This is a behavior change, dear judges. Now, before I can go on, I would like to first tackle the issue of funds. He's talking about it being inconveniencing to the funds in the long run. But I am wondering, if the funds are not there, then what will happen to the medical sector, dear judges, to the medical intervention, dear judges? That is the question that they should answer in today's debate. Now, in today's debate, we are also still emphasizing the fact that people respond to the things that they like and they fear most. In today's debate, that's why we are emphasizing that behavior change can be immediately responded to because there are those things that they fear most.
Let's have Shivashi.
Ladies and gentlemen of the August House, for those of us who are here, who possess any minute amount of the slightest bit of logical cognitive reasoning, can't help but laugh at the case that has been presented by the affirmative side. Clearly, we can see that they are talking about the disease of the mind. Clearly, they are shifting the primary context of the debate from tackling an epidemic to justification of the existence of a mental disease. Are they trying to say that there is an epidemic within an epidemic?
Hello, debaters, judges, and other participants. It's a great pleasure to be part of you. As Mr. Kakaide said, I'm an ICT teacher, and having heard of online debate, I wouldn't miss participating. So I was happy. This is a good initiative and the achievement for Ndc. And I was following. I actually joined late, but I was following. So all the best for the winning team. And our wish, as you said, you organize another tournament so that we alert students and they keep engaged in the online tournament. Otherwise, I'll stop from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Moses, and thank you for being on. We'll surely work out something and communicate.
Thank you very much, Judge Collins. It has been very nice working with the judges. I must just commend all of us for being resilient and hardworking throughout. This was the resolution. This House long-term approach. Judge Collins, let me first mute you. The resolution was this House believes that. Okay, let me first mute all of us. Okay. Okay, so I'm the only one being heard. The resolution was this House believes that the best long-term approach to prevention, mitigation, and/or treatment of epidemics is behavior change rather than medical intervention. So on affirmative team, we had Pretoria, and the negative team, we had Nimei. So team affirmative had a burden of proving to us that it is indeed the behavior change that works better than the medical intervention, and team negative had a burden of proving to us that it is the medical intervention that works other than the behavior change. So the debaters came out. I must say that this has been a very tight round. We almost had, of course, we cannot fail to come to a conclusion on this, but it was a tight round. I must say it was a tight round because it seems like either team did their best to bring out what they really wanted to say. However, these are just some of the things that were realized. That first, one team to some extent did not really prove to us that it was what they were supporting that had a better stand in this debate. For example, when you keep on bringing examples within a particular case, within your case, you bring examples, and the very examples that you bring can be used by the opponent team to still put loopholes within your particular case, then it somehow ceases to be important, or the examples that you bring out cease to have meaning, because if you're bringing out an example, it's ideally supposed to back up your case. But if the very examples you bring can be used by your opponent to show that that is why your team or that is why your case is weak, then it shows that to some degree, or to a reasonable degree, the examples you bring cannot stand for that round. It is not about judging based on examples, because you cannot judge based on examples, but the very fact that the evidence you bring out is used against you within a particular round may not be something nice in as far as the round is concerned. So team affirmative comes up and shows us that it's the human behavior, and they really claim that medication is not bad, but their claim is that the human behavior is necessary within all this. And these are the reasons as to why they front the human behavior. They claim that it's cheap and that human beings can adopt to it, it's manageable, and that it reduces a pandemic to being an epidemic, like it reduces a pandemic from being an epidemic, like an epidemic from being a pandemic, and that they are able to show us a case of all diseases or all epidemics that have been able to go away because of the adjustment in behavior. And they show the cheapness of this. They show that most countries do not have the funds, do not have the research, do not even have the medicine or even anything that they can do. And then they show us that apparently with the COVID-19 pandemic, it is the behavior change that is helping us sustain ourselves through this. It is not necessarily the medicine, but the behavior change. So when team negative comes on ground, team negative brings a theory, the utilitarian theory, that shows that actually human beings will always opt for what is best for their survival. And in this case, because human beings always go for what they feel is best in relation to having good life. No one wants quarantine. No one wants washing their hands always. It is best that we have a vaccine, or it is best that we have medication, because when we get the medication, we can still enjoy the life that we've been enjoying at a less inconvenience. So they show us that proper treatment is what can reduce a pandemic to an epidemic. And then they also show us that it is practically impossible, that what team affirmative is proposing, the behavior change, is practically impossible, but more of theoretical. They show us that for how long can a person stay within quarantine? For how long can a person stay washing their hands? For how long is this adaptability worth taking on, or for how long is it practical in real sense? Because as long as something qualifies to be a behavior change, then it should have a consistency or a period of time for which it can expound. But for how long can people expound on these particular measures versus how more convenient is medication in treating all these measures? So the second affirmative comes and clearly proves us that yes, it is indeed the washing of hands. It is indeed a fact that people respond to things that they fear most. It is indeed a fact that several pandemics are solved by behavior changes and all that information. They show us that medical intervention is important. However, it is not a long-term approach. Instead, the long-term approach for this case is the behavior change, but not the medication, because medication has consequences, like they say. So when team negative comes on board, team negative tells us that, okay, we are not simply arguing over conveniency. We are not simply arguing over what can be done, but we are arguing over conveniency. Like, how convenient is the adaptation? How convenient is the washing of hands every after 20 minutes? How convenient is the lockdown? How convenient is all these other strategies? So they show us that yes, even the real behaviors that are given or that are practiced by people within pandemics are behaviors that have been prescribed by the medical institutes that show us how actually different viruses respond, and then tell us how to behave and all those things. And they show us that the very behavior that people carry on is a step within the medical procedures. So team negative comes back and then tells us that making a vaccine takes time, and so it takes time. And then they also tell us that medical interventions sometimes do have errors. And then they also show us that they ask a question, they pose a question: what then is the best long-term approach in this? And then they are saying that they urge you to weigh the case. While team negative comes and answers and shows that the medical team assumes that the behaviors or the very things that people do are their own, yet these are things prescribed by the medical institute. And then they go ahead and show us that the very examples presented by team affirmative of people are contracting HIV/AIDS, and because they know that the ARVs are there, shows an inconsistency within behavior. And for that reason, medicine is the best way to go. Then they go ahead and show us that there was a flu. I think it should have been the Spanish flu of 2019, much as they called it as 2019 flu, that only got its result by medication, but not by behavior. That at some point, people failed out on behavior adaptation, and so medication was the best thing to go because of its conveniency. And then they also show us that there was a clash point of medication, of the availability versus the costliness of the medication. But a negative team is able to show us that people get medication for free, for example, the antiretrovirals and all those other things. So the team that wins for this round, I don't know that Judge Dario is back on board, but in case he is not back on board, I will read for us his comments, what he says for every speaker, and so that you can get to hear what he really thinks about you. So this is what he says. He says that the first speaker, that's affirmative speaker, that very well spoken and make solid points that are reliable. It would be great to have some examples that apply globally, given the nature of the topic. Also be careful with filler words that may interrupt the flow of the speech. And then to the second speaker, still the affirmative speaker, this is what he says: that great speaking style with lots of passion in the presentation. Additionally, the speech provides various examples that was missing in the first speech, which helps to make the argument come to life. Great job at breaking down the most important parts of the argument and focusing on the impacts for the round. And then this is what he says for the third speaker, affirmative speaker: strongest speaker on the team and very good at establishing the dynamics for the entire argument. However, it would be great to see more direct refutation to the second speaker on the negative that established a lot of valid points throughout. Make sure you go more from point to point instead of long statements on grouped issues. You have the time to use more of a line by line and establish individual points. Do not forget the impact and tell us why things matter. I shall assume that those instructions or that feedback is very clear. Since it has been very clear to me, I shall assume it's clear to you too. Then let's go to the negative speakers. The first speaker, -1, great job, but very fast. Make sure you control the pace of your speech. This will help the judge flow your speech and understand all the points you are making. Great job at going point by point over the other side and establishing a very good groundwork for the negative side. I think this is very true. Innocent has a very, very rapid syndrome. Okay, then the second speaker for the negative side, this is what he says: very passionate and real. However, make sure to use more facts to offset the affirmative instead of just regular stories. However, you did a great job at breaking down the affirmative and outlining the holes in the argument. Nice job with refutation. I think by this he meant when you tell us about the principle of utilitarianism, like you try to apply, be more clear and explain what it means, because these are theories that you shall not assume that people know a lot about. And then the second speaker, rather the third speaker, rather. Let me see. Okay, the third speaker, this is what he says: strong speaker and great job placing things into perspective for the entire world. Very realistic speech and highly well-spoken overall. Wow, so for the last round, Dario thinks that Mpaji Ishak has been the best speaker for the round. And then he adds on that, however, it would be great to see more impact calculus in the arguments. You are allowing the affirmative to define the debate and not providing any reasons why the negative is impacting towards the, let me see, why the negative is impacting towards the better solution. Saving the speech is the ability to offset some of the examples with other more global applications of the topic and issues, which help place things more into a realistic perspective. So this has been the comment to each speaker. Then this has been the overall comment to affirmative team. The team lacked a consistent weighing mechanism that would allow the judges to decide between which points are more important and which points are not, and impact no longer to the overall debate. The team is strong, but needs to continue working on prioritization of arguments and using analysis that outweighs the arguments created by the negative team. Keep the arguments more global and also are more applicable to everyone, but the examples used throughout were strong and very well done. Excellent job. And then to the negative side, very strong team and great ability to provide strong refutation overall to many of the points made by the affirmative team. The overall impacts were not so strong, but the examples and arguments were very well established. So that was from Judge Dario Kamara, who is a long-term judge and debater. I think as far as I heard from Chief, he has taken over 15 years in this. And that makes at least his verdict also worth credible and listening to. I thought I should share it with you because in a long run, it may not necessarily help us, the judges, but it helps the debaters say for the next debate competitions, how do you improve? How do you better up? Or what do you need to change? Is it the pace? Is it the coordination within the examples? How do you even have to go about this? etc, etc. So, having shared with you that the judges deliberated and we were able to come to a conclusion, I will first invite Cohens. Judge Cohens, are you on? Judge Cohens?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay.
Yes, Judge Carol.
I am now inviting you before we can finally break the ice.
Well, okay, before you break the ice, people should be ready too. But I want to thank you so much for being very elaborate and giving that wonderful feedback. We hope this is what we take pride in as NDC, if you can leave this tournament and say the feedback that the judges gave did not leave me the same debate and do it with you. Right about now, I shouldn't speak any more words, but only two. Yeah, there is somebody who was supposed to announce, but it seems network is disturbing him, so he cannot be in position to. Now, may I now take the opportunity to invite Mr. Daniel.
Thank you, wonderful judge, for a job well done. On behalf of the organizers of this tournament, I wish to announce the winner of this online debate by the name of Niame.
Woo! Congratulations, Yami.
Niame.
I feel stupid.
And congratulations, Niame, and all the participants. Job well done.
Wow, congratulations, Yami.